Namaste everyone. Thank you for joining in this video. So today I'm just going to take you through the various styles of Jyotish that are available in the modern times. Okay. So although properly speaking, Jyotish should involve the planets and constellations, but then what it is seen in India is that Jyotishis will often resort to three non-celestial disciplines. Okay, and those disciplines are numerology. Okay, it is known as Shankya Shastra, and then there is the Samudrika Shastra, which involves the interpretation of body parts. Okay, the marks on the body, the moles on the body, and so on. Okay, and then there is the Hasta Samudrika Shastra, which is most commonly known as palmistry. Okay, but it is a sub branch or a specialized branch of Samudrika Shastra. Okay, and for a Jyotishi in India, or for any Jyotishi who has been practicing this art of Vedic astrology, it is not unusual for such people to predict travel only from the palm of the hand, or maybe some Jyotishi will forecast a career change based on the numerology of a birth date. Okay, and then maybe someone else will look at the size of a toe and predict marital success or marital failure from that size. All right, and palmistry, that is Hasta Samutrika Shastra. It is so commonly used by Jyotishis that a combination of palmistry and Jyotish, they are commonly known as a sister. They are both known as sister sciences. Okay, and then five principal styles of Jyotish have evolved, each of which retains its distinctive character and capabilities. All right, and these five principal styles, they have repeatedly cross-pollinated over the centuries. Okay, and each of these styles, they were originated by a famous mythical or historical figure who either compiled these texts, or who is reputed to have written these treatises or texts. Okay, and each of these texts, which are included in these five principal styles of Jyotish, each of these texts, they are enriched by inspired commentaries. Okay, and anyone who is wanting to become a Jyotishi in India, they are taught to differentiate between these classical authorities. Okay, and my personal advice to all aspiring astrologers would be is that never mix or intermix these five principal systems. Okay, if you are doing your interpretation by using one system, then stick to that system instead of jaunting between 2 to 3 different systems. Okay, so Parashara, he is known as the big daddy. That is, okay, he is known as the who is known as the father of India, and who is also the reputed author of Brahat Parashara Horasastra, which is popularly known as BPHS. Okay, and the lineage of a tradition of Jyotish begins when the living principles of Jyotirvidya, they become embodied by by a seer's consciousness. That means the consciousness of a saint. Okay, and then these principles are embellished over generations by Jyotishis who are possessed by the Jyotirvidya, who can see the light. Okay, and the rishi of any tradition, okay, who is believed that such a rishi has one foot on the celestial plane and the other on earth, and such a rishi also helps to maintain the bonds between deep human knowledge and its sacred origins, and those who accept students mold them mercilessly into fit receptacles for the Jyotirvidya, that the lineage may continue unbroken. Okay, so all sincere Jyotishis, they will regard themselves as custodians of their lineages, and they will always revere all those who have come before them. Okay, so coming to the chief, the principal styles of Jyotish. So the first style of Jyotish that I would be discussing is the Nadi form of Jyotish. Okay, and to be very honest, no one really knows when Nadi Jyotish originated. Okay, it is said that the Indian rishis, they became such experts at Jyotish that they were able to generate the horoscopes of people who were not yet born, and they were able to predict the main patterns in their lives. Okay, and because these rishis had produced a river of such horoscopes, the gods, they were, they were alarmed, okay, and they sent a great fire which destroyed most of the collection, okay. And those fragments of the nadis that survived, they are handed down from parent to child in certain families of Indian astrologers, and these families, they are the custodians of these nadi texts, okay. And these nadi remnants are identified by their, by their authors. And amongst the best known nadi texts, we have the Bhrigu Nadi, we have the Parashara Nadi, we have the Shukla Nadi, and we have the Chandrakala Nadi. Okay. And each Nadi collection is reputed to contain the horoscopes of only those individuals who are destined to consult that particular collection. Okay. And when complete, what happens is that a Nadi reading traditionally consists of 4 parts. Okay. So the first part is known as Bhavaphala. It deals with issues like career, then marriage, children, health, and finances. Then we have the Yoga Khanda, which is the second part. It gives precise predictions. Okay. And these predictions will usually involve, political or social or scientific attainments, okay, based on certain political, certain planetary combinations in that horoscope. Then we have the Karma Khanda, okay. This is the third part. It deals with specific, that deals with specific occurrences in a previous life, right? And specific occurrences are mostly misdeeds that you had committed in the past life, okay. And those misdeeds are the ones whose effects they create obstructions in this life, okay. And the last section, which is known as the Shanti Khanda, it prescribes remedial measures to mitigate or nullify any lingering undesirable results which, which may have issued or which may have arisen from past life, past life actions, okay, or in misactions, basically, right? And the methodology of a Nadi reading remains a secret, which is guarded closely by those custodians for whom the Nadis are a family business. Okay, but yet the Nadis, they will, they will yield their principles grudgingly to outsiders who try to research them. Okay, and there is a curious fact that, that has been true, or that is true in case of Nadi Jyotish. Okay, a Nadi reading is often strikingly precise regarding one's past. But when it comes to predictions for the future, they they are very, very inaccurate, or you can say they are usually broadly accurate. Okay, so the past can be predicted very well by any Nadi astrologer, but when it comes to future prediction, they are usually seen to fail in that. Okay, then we have the Parashari Jyotish, which derives from sage Parashar. Okay, and Parashari refers to the tradition which is, as I said, which is which was started by Maharishi Parashara. Okay, and it was started by his great book, the Brahat Parashara Horashastra. Okay, and in the current form, this book contains a total of 97 chapters and over 2000 verses that deal with natal astrology. Okay, and this system also comprises of other famous works like the Saravali, then Jataka Parijata, and Paradipika. Okay, so these are elaborations of the Parashari system, which is the form of Jyotish that is most widely practiced today. Okay, and it's not known when when Parashari Jyotish took on its present form. Okay, and even the book that is there, the Brahat Parashara Horashastra, it is not, it cannot be said that it has remained in the same form as was, as was laid down or written by Rishi Parashara. Okay, and it is also impossible to know whether whether this form of Jyotish solidified earlier or later than the time of Varahamihira. Okay, and we know that Varahamihira was the court astrologer who served the famous emperor Chandragupta II. Okay, and Varahamihira, he was very renowned for his wisdom, very renowned for his verified predictions, and he actually wrote voluminously on all subjects or all aspects of Jyotish. Okay, and he has 6 principal treatises to his credit, and the most widely read today are his Brihad Jataka. Okay, it deals with birth or natal astrology, and then there is the Brihad Samhita of Varahamihira, which is mainly concerned with various forms of divination. Okay, so without knowing whether the current system, which is ascribed to Parashara, it preceded or followed Varahamihira, we cannot know how much one stream of information influenced the other. All right, but it is a fact that there is no Varahamihiri tradition that is independent of the Parashari tradition. Okay, but then Varahamihira is still greatly respected. Okay, he is still greatly respected because he is, he is the author of one of the best known works of Jyotish, which was composed by someone who was not a rishi. Okay, so there is no reference to call Varaha Mihira as rishi. All right. Then we have the Jaimini Jyotish. Okay, so Maharishi Jaimini, he was a great Vedic astrologer scholar, right? He is regarded as the grandchild of Parashara. Okay, and he is believed by some to have written the Jaimini Sutras. Okay, and this Jaimini Sutras is the foundation for this Jaimini Jyotish system. Okay, so very few people or very few Jyotishis in India, they predict the Gemini system in its purest form, but in my experience, this is the most, this is the system of Jyotish that leads to the most accurate number of predictions. Okay, and it can also be used to augment Parashari Jyotish. That means even if someone is not using Gemini Jyotish system independently, you can actually use it to better your predictions using the Parashara system. Okay, and the fundamental principles of Gemini, they seem to have been adopted from the Parashara system. Okay, but then it has developed so much that there is very little resemblance left to that Parashara system. Okay, and Jaimini Jyotish is also filled with interpretation principles which are not there in Parashara's DPHs. Okay, so what I feel is that it is very much possible that some author developed Jaimini Jyotish from Parashara system, and then this person, he or she appended Maharishi Jaimini's name to his creation. Okay, and what happens is that Indian commentators or innovators in ancient times, they commonly ascribed authorship of their works to renowned historical or mythical figures in order to enhance their chances of acceptance by scholars. Okay, so there is this astrologer Kalidasa who wrote the very famous Uttar Kalamrita, and this Kalidasa, he was almost certainly different from the poet and dramatist Kalidasa. Okay, so Kalidasa was actually a great Kali Bhakta, but the author of Uttar Kalamrita, which is also written by Kalidasa, is not this Kalidasa. Okay, it is not this Kalidas, and the Kalidas who was a great devotee of Kali, he had written some of India's greatest literature. Okay, but then there are some people who will believe that this Kalidas, who had who was a great devotee of Kali, and the author of Uttara Kalamrita, whose name was also Kalidas, are the two same people. Okay, and this inspiration from Maharishi Jaimini, it created the egg of Jaimini Jyotish. Okay, right? If you consider Jaimini Jyotish as an egg, so this egg first requires Parashara's fertilization before it can develop on its own. Okay, and it also might be possible that a commentator from the Parashara system, he or she extracted from Jaimini Jyotish those few chapters that the Parashari and Jaimini styles share, and added them to the DPHs as if they had been there for the beginning. Okay, so this is only a possibility, as I am saying. We are unlikely to know that for sure, right? Then we have Tantric Jyotish. So the roots of Tantric Jyotish, they are very utterly unknown. Okay, and in fact, neither Tantric Jyotish nor Tantra can be readily defined, isn't it? So like Ayurveda, Tantra is also believed to be an offshoot of the Atharva Veda, the fourth of the four Vedas, right? But no one has, again, no one has a clear idea on the origins of the Atharva Veda. Okay, because it's a hymnal narrative filled with occult chants and charms. All right. So in an astrological context, this word tantric, it implies a mystical and intuitive attitude towards Jyotish. And Tantra, Tantra, it calls for sacrificial rites. Okay, and the practitioner of a Tantric Jyotish tends to rely on internally derived information over that collected from external sources, arriving at startling correct conclusions via magical techniques. Okay, so these techniques, they include the observation and interpretation of women's. They will include the observation and analysis of the breathing pattern of the astrologer at the moment a question is asked, the interpretation of a client's speech patterns and actions. Okay, the encouraging of spontaneous or forced visions, right? Then clairvoyance, clairaudience, or astral travel, the use of information received from ethereal beings. Okay, the use of substances or techniques to induce such paranormal or psychic phenomenon as the charming of objects or people, past life readings, miraculous, miraculous cures and the granting of boons, and the use of intense spiritual practices to bring the powers of nature under one's direct and personal control. Okay, there are many systems of divination around the world which would also apply the same techniques. Okay, but then few who do past life readings or trance channeling are practicing tantric jyotish. Okay, and tantric methods of divination are typically performed within the framework of the model of a jyotishi. So this framework is actually meant to help the jyotishi to focus, to enhance, and to structure them. Okay, it is this process of standardization and correlation which makes astrological, the collection of shamanic techniques, that is tantric jyotish. Okay, for example, omens may be interpreted in many ways, but then jyotishi tends to interpret them according to time when they happen, that is, and space where they happen. Okay, an omen which occurs in a westerly direction is likely to cause astrologer to think first of Saturn, who rules the west, and then to consider Saturn's implications on the question at hand. All right, so let's take another example of this. So many people in many cultures, they have been able to gain control over certain classes of spirits, but most do so haphazardly. Okay, and they are often unaware of what sort of spirit they have harnessed. All right, so jyotish, it can determine by examination of the horoscope whether or not a person can succeed at such an endeavor, and if so, what classes of spirit they will be able to summon when in their lives they will be able to succeed, and at what precise moment they should begin their rituals in order to succeed. So this is about Parashari system. Then we have the Tajika Jyotish. Okay, so we know that Nilakantha Daivagya was the prime proponent of this system. Okay, and because of him being the prime proponent, he was also given another common name, which by the name of Nilakantha Tajika. Okay, and this school of Tajik Jyotish is a relatively late development, and it has, since its introduction into India from the Arabs, became thoroughly Indianized. Okay, and the Tajika, for those who don't know, Tajika is a Sanskrit term for an Arab. All right, and this form of Jyotish, it actually feels more familiar to the Western astrologer because Arabic astrological methods also figured prominently in the West. For example, exact aspects, or the especially including the sextile, okay, the square, the trine, and opposition are as intrinsic to the system as they are to Ptolemaic astrology. Okay, Ptolemaic astrology is of course the source of Western astrology. All right, and the most famous contribution of the Tajika Jyotish or the Tajika school of Jyotish is to teach the technique of solar return, which Indian Jyotishis have termed as Varshaphala. Okay, so Varshaphala is of course results of the year if you translate it. And though Varshaphala is not a part of the Parashari tradition, it may, it has already been adopted by many people. Okay, there are astrologers who will give readings only on the Varshaphala. Okay, so that's it. Right, that's it about Tajika Jyotish. That's it from me in this video. Thank you for for patiently listening to my rantings, to my rumblings, and kindly like the channel, like the video, subscribe to this channel, and should you have any queries, or or you want to discuss regarding your chart, you're most welcome, or you're more than welcome to to ping me personally at the number that is given in a description box. Okay, so thank you everyone. I'll see you again in another video. Om Gurave Namaha.